The Alabama Crimson Tide in year 2 under Karen DeBoer, you can expect this team to improve, mainly in the sense of winning games that they are supposed to win. Oklahoma later on in the year last year. Thank you so much for tuning into this. We're going to break down Alabama 2025 preview as well as get some predictions going. Why is this team going to be very good and why do I have them going all the way to the SEC champ game next year? It is because they have the second best wide receiver and playmaker in college football in Ryan Williams. I am extremely high on Ty Simpson, have him end up being a top 15 quarterback in college football after the year is all said and done. Why? Because of R. Willie on the outside. Also, there's Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton to get the football to. They did lose the production at running back after last year, so we'll see who develops into the run attack main role. Is it Richard Young? Is it Jam Miller for them? Does Ty Simpson at any point show off an athletic ability to get first downs when he can? Because all you need to know about Bama is that Jalen Milroe is no longer there, and you won't be having those 4 touchdown performances back-to-back years against the LSU Tigers. So let's get into it. The first game of the year at Florida State and Mike Norvell's squad. This team had the biggest letdown we've ever seen in college football history, going from 13 wins to only 2. Expect them, obviously, to have a bit more of a bounce back. But Bama on the defensive side, returning a bit more production than expected. Deontae Lawson had the unfortunate injury last year. He's back. That veteran presence for the defense, always huge. Justin Jefferson, Domani Jackson, LT Overton. That Bama defense is going to be stout and one of the better units in college football. Now, Karen DeBoer under year 2. What I want to point out is that you can look at what Washington was once he had been there a little bit longer, right? Once he had Penix with him and they got used to what was that offense, what their identity was going to be. I think we could see a little bit of a similarity in that Ryan Williams can be like that Rome Odunze guy. Obviously, not comparing their body types or exactly their skill sets. Williams being a little bit lighter and having that dynamic and straight line speed, whereas Odunze, intermediate 50-50 catch guy, terrific route runner like Ryan Williams is, but just, of course, the different skill sets. For Bama, it's establishing the run, but I do have them getting a win, 34-13 to open up the season against UL Monroe in Wisconsin. The weeks 2 and 3 on the year have them winning 48-7 against UL Monroe and 38-0 on the Badgers. Caden Proctor, every Bama fan knows that name. He might end up being a top 3 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft at left tackle. He's the type of player that is going to keep Ty Simpson upright and protected all throughout the season so that he has a little bit more time to throw and be able to have an effect and impact on obviously both the run and the pass game. Parker Brailsford, is he the top center in college football, or at least a top 5 guy? Jaden Roberts on the interior. The offensive line for Bama is good. They've got players that have been there, that have a little bit of experience, and that always helps. Week 4, there is a bye for Bama. Don't have to worry about that. It's a great time. Comes at a big moment because the next week they are on the road at Georgia, Sanford Stadium. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs are not used to playing huge games at home. Typically, it's like Tennessee, and that's about it. Like last year, they had Georgia Tech in there, got 17-0 put up on them in the first half, and had a crazy comeback win. Could have lost the game 4 or 5 different times. Not even to mention they were down 14 points with about 5:20 left in that game. Georgia's going to look a whole lot different, mainly on the defensive front side, because they're not going to have Michael Williams and Jalen Walker to just bulldoze and run over people. Athlete guys on the edges, as much as you would have liked to seen Caden Proctor try to block Michael and Jalen. We won't be seeing it. And of course, we know that Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver, comes out of USC, transfers over to Georgia. He's the explosive wide receiver, as punt return ability. You have to find a way to always know where he is on the field at all times. Dylan Bell there in Georgia, they're really trying to lean on him to be a source of production ton of drops for Georgia, led college football last year. And then Nate Frazier in the backfield. This guy will just lean on you, run you over. I have Bama with a win on the road against the Dogs, the biggest win of the season for Bama. This one is huge because it puts them to 4-0 on the season and firmly, basically in control. Of course, you're in control of your destiny the whole way to get to the playoff, but specifically for this against a team that is going to be like, it's Bama, Texas, Georgia. It's like, who's a matter of who are the two teams that are going to get there from that in all likelihood. The 4-0 Crimson Tide against Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia. This doesn't go the same way it does last year. Bama does not whatsoever look them over. Also, they get this game at home, and they're fired up to give it to Vandy. They beat them 27-14 and getting to 5-0 on the season. At Mizzou, 30-17, I have them pulling off a win. Mizzou losing the production and Luther Burden. You can't understate that, of course. And they're starting quarterback and Brady Cook. Like, this team is a new look, and when you lose that type of production on offense, it takes a little bit of time to fill in new guys. Like Bama being able to have, again, like I mentioned, Caden Proctor, left tackle, to seamlessly help transition Ty Simpson to be the starter, whereas Mizzou loses their best tackle, best offensive line player in Armand Membu, who goes 7th overall to the Jets. Can't overstate that. LT Overton, look for him to have a huge game there. In week number 8, they play Tennessee at home, Bryant-Denny Stadium. If this one were at Tennessee, of course, you remember Neyland a couple of years ago. They've lost 2 of the more recent matchups. They lost to Tennessee last year, and then 3 years ago, of course, at Neyland, when they carried the goalposts out of that darn place. And that was one of the more memorable moments. You had Brew McCoy with that catch later on in the game, and then the field goal gets kind of knuckleballed in there for the win, and Tennessee ends up throwing goalposts in a river. Not the same story here. Joey Aguilar or Tennessee, they lost all that production. I mentioned Brew McCoy. They lose Deontae Thornton, Squirrel Wright, Dylan Sampson. On the defensive side, no James Pierce Jr. There's no Omar Norman Lott, but they do have Jermod McCoy returning. Seeing that matchup, Ryan Williams against Jermod McCoy, you have to check that off as what could be a top 5 corner versus wide receiver talent matchup. The next week, they're at South Carolina. I have them dropping this one, their first loss of the season at Lenora Sellers. And that South Carolina squad. Of course, I'm going to be continuing to mention all the production these teams lose, because that's how it works in college football. It's not until the middle of the season when we really start to talk about who the guys are within that roster and be like, wow, that guy's filled in. It's more so because of who they have been and recent memory, who to talk about, who they're losing. And then midway through the year, it's like, okay, this guy's establishing. He's filling into that role. This guy is bringing in that Kyle Kennard type impact on that defense. This guy's being like the new TJ Sanders for them. This is the new Nick Emmanwori, 3 of those terrific defenders for South Carolina that they lose. Lenora Sellers, just about everybody has him as a top 6 quarterback in college football going into next year. 6'4", 235, just a dominating freak athlete. And then Nick Harbour, a name that you really should know if you're an Alabama fan. He's going to be giving Domani Jackson in that Bama secondary fits, like 6'5", 230, and this kid runs like low 4.3s. He's a freak. The bye comes after that week 10, which they very much so need. And then LSU. LSU's been 6-2 3 straight years in a row before playing Bama. Of course, they beat him a couple years ago with Jaden Daniels. They wound up going to the SEC championship game and then lost to Bama. Then the last 2 years, Jalen Milroe runs for a combined 8 touchdowns against the Tigers. Last year, Harold Perkins was not on the field to help to stop that. Whit Weeks is also there on LSU. They've got Patrick Payton to transfer over from Florida State. And then offensively, they do look to have a spectacular unit of wide receivers. And of course, leading the charge is their veteran and now a very high confident quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. Got Alabama losing. They have back-to-back losses, 23-27. They drop it to the Tigers. And overall in this season, that puts them at 7-2, but still in a spot where they could get to the SEC championship game, because that's where I am expecting them to be, just as long as they beat the next team, Oklahoma, who if you're following college football, are a darling in the eyes of so many individuals because of John Mateer and how good of a year he had at Washington State, and that Oklahoma defense going to be at a very similar level. And this is the Bama running the football game. Is Ty Simpson able to come up with a red zone score? Can they be converting on fourth down? All the normal stuff, and then over the top, can Ryan Williams make a big play when they need him to? 27-24, have Bama winning. The next week, they are playing Eastern Illinois, have them blowing them out 52-13. Obviously, every SEC school has like that second to last game of the year against let's just call it a cupcake for that matchup that they get to have and end their season with, of course, the Iron Bowl. 30-17 got Bama winning. It's not as dramatic as it was 2 or 3 years ago with Bama just being on the brink, 4th and 31, needing it, and then against Auburn a few years ago. Like that was looking dire, and then we get the crane celebration. That was fantastic. 30-17, they beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl, 10-2 on the year. Please let me know in the comments what you think of Bama next year. If you agree with what I'm throwing out there, I'm gonna be sure there's gonna be like LSU should be in the SEC champ game, Georgia's gonna make it, but I do have Texas and Bama for my SEC champ. It's not a crazy thing to come up with. The confidence is there. I love Kalen DeBoer. If you're a Bama fan and you don't like Kalen DeBoer, give him time next year. If you have a down year, now I understand it. It could be time to panic if you missed 2 straight college football playoffs after there's expansion, but no shot you would miss it if this thing expands to 16, especially it's a 5x11 format. I digress a little bit, but please subscribe for more content in the future. We're going to keep rolling towards the start of the college football season. Next year, we're going to be live streaming, covering the whole year for college as well as the NFL, so please stay tuned for that and subscribe to know when everything will be dropping. And of course, I wish you a great rest of your day, unless you check out a couple more videos. You might want to binge a couple of these. It's fun. And then, I will see you next time. Thank you.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Blunder.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.